we need to understand a little bit more about fats at this point now. There's an awful lot of rubbish out there in the media, particularly about LDLs, HDL, good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. To start off with, there is no such thing as a cholesterol level in your blood. It doesn't happen. The cholesterol doesn't float around willy-nilly in your blood. It just doesn't happen. It is combined with other things. This is where the word HDL and LDL are not cholesterol. They contain some cholesterol, the same as anything else does. Your sort of biggest, imagine them as being transported. Eddie Stobart trucks, yes? He's sure he's got really big Pantechnicons, and I'm sure he may have small little white vans as well, maybe, as an example. Imagine that they are just transport vehicles and they perform a particular function depending on where they're going. If you're going through the little small country roads, you're not going to have a big Pantechnicon going through, you're going to have a small vehicle. The same is true with your body and what they do with these types of things. So you have chylomicrons, which are mostly triglycerides. Think of them as sugars. It's not right, but it's close enough. 83% triglycerides, 8% cholesterol, 7% phospholipids, and 2% protein. This is the job that it does, and my note is missing from this very piece of paper. Hang on. Why isn't it there? Let me find it. So then you have a VLDLs, very low density lipoprotein. That's what it stands for, lipoprotein. Lipo meaning fat, protein meaning protein. Sort of does what it says on the tin. Doesn't say cholesterol in it. Contains it though. So they're 50% triglycerides, 22% cholesterol, 18% phospholipids, and 9% protein. Make sense so far? LDLs, again, just a different variation. In this particular case, the reason they seem to get a bad press is it happens to be the one that contains the majority of cholesterol transportation, then 22% phospholipids, 21% protein, and 11% triglycerides. It's just performing a different function. Doesn't make it good or bad. It's that chylomicrons are in balance one way, and then you have LDLs that are balanced in a different way, and then you need to have one that's balanced the other way, so one has the majority of each one. So HDLs have 50% protein, 22% phospholipids, 20% cholesterol, and 8% triglycerides. But one is classified, the one we hear about is HDL and LDL, as being, oh yes, well, HDL are better than LDLs. Why? They just perform a different function because somebody's obsessed with cholesterol being bad for us. So far, we haven't yet to come across why cholesterol is bad for us, because, hang on a minute, it's there for cell membrane permeability, and if there isn't decent membrane permeability or fluidity, then our cells don't work right, and as we are all cells, then isn't cholesterol important? Why shouldn't we have a decent level of cholesterol in our body?
Well, that's why PP says it's plaque.
Aha, really? Is that so? Well, let us have a little talk about fat then, plaque then, shall we?
And statins is good for you.
Are they? Well, let's have a little chat about those as well. Now, okay, to be fair, statins save lives ostensibly for those people who have got serious problems. When something's actually malfunction of the liver not working right, not actually regulating cholesterol levels, or it's overproducing cholesterol. If there's any such thing. But ostensibly,
You've got high cholesterol.
Depending on what you mean by high cholesterol. Now, statins do what they say on the tin. They do what they say. They lower your cholesterol level. Well, actually what they do is they impede the enzyme production of your body's ability to produce LDLs. Okay? This is assuming that you want low cholesterol, and this is assuming that LDLs are things you don't want. But they do what they say to do. Yeah, no doubt about it. Statins do lower your cholesterol level. Okay. Do what they say on the tin. And I'm sure for some people it must help. It must save their lives. Otherwise they wouldn't give it to you, surely. This insanity with dishing out statins just because you're over 50, please explain why. Is this because the licenses just happen to be running out on statins and they need to get rid of the excess, maybe? Don't know. Very convenient, though. Licenses are running out when we have to produce them anymore. So this is a quick selection, and there are actually lots more. There are loads of different versions of this, all with a different ratio of cholesterol, proteins and fats in them, all performing a particular function. They just do what they do. It's not some malfunction of the brain. Is my microphone okay? It is. So, chylomicrons are large molecules made from fats, proteins and cholesterol by cells in the small intestine. Okay? These molecules transport fats out of the intestines and into the circulatory system. And some of that fat is stored in fatty tissue, and some of it is transported to the liver. Because again, the fat may need to be turned into energy. And this is what the liver in essence does, really. When the cells have too much cholesterol, molecules called high-density lipoproteins, HDL, pick up the excess cholesterol and transport it back to the liver. Okay, everything's fine? It's doing its job. The cholesterol is then reused to make bile acids or excreted. In essence, it binds with other excess fats and it just helps us get, in essence, emulsifies the fat. Now, HDL is called good cholesterol because it supposedly removes excess cholesterol from the body. Okay, that's fair enough because you can have too much or too little cholesterol. The body has its own regulatory mechanism. So, okay, we can go with this HDL thing that it's supposedly the good one. No, it's doing its job, but okay. Let us leave it there for a moment. We're going to come back to cholesterol because there is something to do with light and cholesterol as well. Okay, so cholesterol sulfate is produced in your skin when exposed to sunshine. When you're deficient in cholesterol, from lack of sun exposure, your body employs another mechanism to increase it. Answering Alan's question. Come on. Taking damaged LDL and turning it into plaque. So if you haven't got enough sun, then your body's starting to say, well, having cholesterol is actually more important, so I do actually need to get hold of it. So it says, okay, I'm going to grab you, I'll take the cholesterol out of you, and the bit that's remaining, I'm just going to put it over there. However, plaque is not necessarily a bad thing in itself. It is a filler mechanism. If your acidity levels in your arteries are too high, then you get little acidity levels in your, which usually means too much sugar half the time. Your blood gets very acidic, and it creates pits, quite literally, in your arterial walls. Okay, and it's a bit like a workman going on and saying, okay, pothole there. Well, I haven't got proper tarmac here, but what I'll do, I've got some cholesterol in my hands, and I'll fill in the hole for the time being because it's only a little pit, doesn't really do too much damage. Cholesterol has its uses. So plaque has its uses in the right way. Now, there are issues. The body can also malfunction. You can have too much plaque if you have not enough sunshine. If you don't have enough cholesterol, the body actually needs to get it from somewhere. There's an interesting little story, and there's a famous picture, and I've yet to get hold of it. It's an X-ray of this gentleman who has got a tubular piece of bone, roughly not far. I think it's on his aorta. I think it was. Okay, and the body's manufactured this for him. And the reason this happened is that, and it's quite a long-winded story, but the long and short of it was that for whichever reason this chap didn't believe in having operations, and he was told that he's got a thinning aortic wall, and he was going to snuff it if he didn't do something about it, and for whether it was religious reasons or whatever it may have been, he said, no, fine, but actually he was saying, but no, please go ahead, if you want to monitor me. I'm not quite sure why it ended up like it was. But anyway, they kept telling him, well, your cholesterol levels are going through the roof. We've got to give you this medication. He's going, no, I believe the body's going to sort it out, and if I'm going to snuff it, I'm going to snuff it. His cholesterol levels went up, and they went up and went up. And then suddenly they started to drop slightly, but his calcium levels started to hit the roof as well. And lo and behold, what was in essence going on is the body was doing what it's supposed to do. It's found a big blinking hole in the aorta and said, okay, cholesterol, let's, stock this up here. And then the body says, no, sorry, this is not good enough. We've actually got a major thinning going on. We need to actually get a bit more industrial about this. Let's start making some bone. And lo and behold, it creates a nice piece of tubular bone around the area that was thinning. And so the guy did not die of a burst aorta. A few years later, he died of something else, but that's why we have the X-ray picture. But it's one of these things that changed the way in which we understood what cholesterol does. The body's very clever, and when it operates correctly, it knows exactly what it's doing. Fascinating stuff. So, is a high cholesterol level necessarily bad? Okay, so exposed to UV light doubles white blood cell count, and that gives the ability to fight infection better. We know about white blood cells. Sunlight plus cholesterol equals vitamin D. When we say, oh yes, sunlight is vitamin D, it's like, no. Sunlight plus cholesterol makes vitamin D. But you can't be telling people that actually cholesterol, sunlight, cholesterol, yes, fantastic. No, you've got to tell them it's something else. But yes, cholesterol takes the UV light and basically makes it into vitamin D. Keratinocytes plus sunlight equals interleukin IL-1. And that means more T cells, which again is more ability to fight infection. Yeah? So sunlight is quite important, really. This is where we sort of drift back in this rather... Have you noticed I'm going slightly off at a tangent? You think, what has this got to do with the fight or flight mechanism?
Sorry. Just a little bit fast. Can you just... I'd just like to see the last line, that keratinocytes and so
Are we going to get a copy of your notes, Gov?
I can send the PDF to everybody if they want it.
What was it? I didn't...
Right, I was scribbling away madly there. It's like, you don't have to do that. You just ask me for a copy, I'll send it to you. Well, I've been watching you all suffer.
I didn't actually hear the last bit about keratinocytes and so on. Can you just explain that a little bit more?
In essence, it's another part of your immune system, and it's producing your body's ability to fight infection. Sunlight is a major player, and this is where we sort of drift back. If you remember when I showed you those lovely pictures of the amino acids, is that they're rather colourful and splendid things, and I did briefly mention, albeit in passing, the difference between natural and synthetic amino acids. The body knows the difference, even though chemically, that diagram I had right at the very beginning, that rather, if you looked at, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference looking at that biochemical diagram, the difference between a natural and a synthetic version of an amino acid. Looks the same. Chemically identical. However, the difference is that when you pass light through a natural amino acid, it passes it to the left. This is why it has an L prefix. L-glutamine, L-arginine, L-phenylalanine. Yeah, L-arginine. If, however, you take a synthetic amino acid that is chemically identical, lo and behold, when you pass light through it, it reflects light to the right under a microscope. Hence it gets the D prefix, meaning dextro in Latin, to the right. So D-arginine, D-phenylalanine, D-glutamine. Hence, generally speaking, you see only L prefixes on the shops. And the reason being is because that natural marker, the ability for it to reflect light in a different way, also affects how your immune system deals with it. Is that the various things that the natural types of amino acids have is that what they do is they have a variety of immune responses that helps the body fight particular things, and it's really good for X, Y, Z. Yeah? And in most cases, not all, is the synthetic versions are missing a few of the things that it helps the body with. Except for phenylalanine, as far as we know anyway. This is why when you see phenylalanine on the shops, it says D-L-phenylalanine. It's because actually it's found that in some cases, synthesized amino acids have a few other things that the natural version doesn't have. And in the case of phenylalanine, it has a few and it's missing, so they bung them both together so you get the best of both worlds. And this is... Sorry, yes, you're going to ask, Bjorn.
Well, I was going to ask the question around this. Is this the answer to why the Mediterranean diet is supposedly good for you? Nothing to do with the diet and everything to do with Mediterranean.
There is an inverse proportion with regards to heart disease and sunlight. Is that the more sunlight there is, the less chances of heart disease there is.
So eating a Mediterranean diet in England is pointless?
Quite possibly, yeah.
Oh, lovely olive oil. Oh my God.
Yeah, there's a lot to do with it. The number of people that suffer from either chronic fatigue and ME, and also in many cases types of depression, is that the number of them that actually they feel a lot better when they go, have a bit of time in the sun. I know that Sally actually, my wife, she used to suffer quite badly from SAD, and since she's got a daylight corrected alarm clock, which wakes her up very nicely, and because she used to get up and be almost instantly angry, and we've attempted to no, that's not fair. Don't, no, this is recorded. This is for educational purposes, dear. Yeah, I've gone all flash now. Okay, so she would say that an alarm clock, first thing in the morning when it's all quiet, it would irritate her. She'd actually be really quite grumpy. Since we've had this alarm clock, the actual natural waking up of the sun quite early in the morning, she's a completely different person in the morning, and also we've tried, if we can, to go away sometime in the winter to somewhere where there's sunshine, and it is noticeably different. Because otherwise, before, when we had very dark winters, most of us go downhill, but it was quite marked in that response. So again, I can say from personal experience that there is certainly something to it, and there are various documentations of this, of people that have certain types of depression and ME can benefit from sunlight. Yeah. So we come back to amino acids. Yes. Now we're going to get a little bit biochemical here because we sort of need to go back into this whole thing. We've got light, and we know that light is important. But there's also some interesting little things going on here. Now the ones we're going to be mentioning, I'm not going to go with all of them, but there are 3 separate sections. One is light and aromatics, that is tryptophan, phenylalanine and tyrosine. The positives, they're the only ones that are positively charged. Others of them are either negative or neutral. And those are histidine, lysine and arginine, which are quite interesting players when it comes to libido and sex. And what I call the tasty ones, asparagine, the ones found in asparagus, and glutamine, or glutamate. We often hear the term, monosodium glutamate, the ones that make things tastier. Yeah. These have really quite interesting roles, and this is my own little brain working, but I find there's an interesting connection with this and the fight or flight mechanism, and why light and whether something is tasty and whether something is positively charged have a major player when it comes to weight loss or weight gain, your relationship with food, and your relationship with light. So let us start off with the aromatics. Now they're called the aromatics because they generally they're the things that are quite often found in things that smell nice. Or smell bad, actually, quite often is the case. But that's sort of a bit of a lie as well, because it's not entirely true. It's something to do with the way that they disintegrate or in essence oxidize quite quickly. This is where a biochemist would take me to the cleaners, because this is also probably a lie as well. However, it works for me, and strangely enough, they are the ones in the body that are in charge of absorbing ultraviolet light. Isn't that interesting? Tryptophan is the thing that makes serotonin. Tyrosine is the one that's in charge of making dopamine. So light has something to do with mood. And strangely, even though we know that serotonin is an inflammatory response, it's related to histidine, remember that one too. Phenylalanine has something to do with pain. So light and pain have something to do with each other. Now, I'm just postulating this, but maybe if you have an imbalance due to stress, either maybe you don't have enough light going on, you don't have enough light in yourself, And we could have a whole series of analogies to do with things like depression, feeling in a dark place, la-di-da-di-da, and why maybe going to a sunny place will help depression and bringing a bit of light back into your life. These 3 amino acids are the ones that are in charge of absorbing ultraviolet light. What does this mean? Well, tryptophan, or 5-HTP is its name, which is an escalation biochemically. This is the type of thing you'd take as a supplement. You can't buy tryptophan on its own, not in this country anyway, and you're not allowed to buy serotonin on its own, and I would argue that it's probably a bit dangerous doing so, is you'd buy 5-HTP, that's what you'd see on the shelves. That combines in the body with vitamin B6, and that will manufacture serotonin for you, and through a series of chain reactions manufactures melatonin, which is your body clock. Helps you sleep too. Does this mean that if you have lots of lovely serotonin in your body, you sleep quite reasonably, assuming that the balance is right? You're looking puzzled. Serotonin. Yes. B6 equals 5-HTP plus B6 equals serotonin equals melatonin. Now, there may be a pathway where they both contribute to each other. Again, I'm following a particular train. Yeah? I seriously hope not, because all this days of research will be out the window. So, where have I gone? Hang on. Tryptophan, serotonin. Now, actually, for tryptophan to make 5-HTP actually involves vitamin C as well, which is sort of another conversation on itself. Again, we are talking about a balanced level of serotonin here, not too high or too low, otherwise you won't sleep at all. Now, interestingly, when you are stressed, when your adrenal glands are outputting loads of adrenaline, one of the key B vitamins that it takes in is vitamin B6. I think it's B6 and B12 actually, but B6 is used up considerably by the adrenal glands. Now this, ostensibly, is if you don't have enough B6 available, and there are two, you get a double whammy. One is the adrenaline will keep you awake, but also your body's not going to be able to manufacture enough serotonin, so your serotonin levels drop, which we already know has low libido, you start to gain weight, but also you're not going to start sleeping very well either. So we have light and stress and other nutrients involved that are being used up by something else. Because if you're in one particular state, your fight or flight mechanism is over-ramped, then your body has priority. It's saying, I need all the nutrients I get, because guess what? That lion is behind me and I need to run away. So everything else, forget about it. We're not bothered about sleeping at this moment, and I don't really care about serotonin levels. When you win something, you get a dopamine release. When you lose, your serotonin levels drop. That feeling of, I've lost. That serotonin's just gone poof. Okay? Because that running away, you haven't actually escaped. In the case of the zebra, ostensibly, yes, he can feel bad for himself, but it won't be too long. Yeah? So, tyrosine.
So that's saying it's not the winning, it's the taking part that's important, is
Rubbish. Absolute tripe. What a load of tripe. No, because winning does help. And this is where we get into something else. And that's called social capital. Tyrosine, that's B6 again, equals dopamine. Now, dopamine, again, helps give us a positive feeling. Also, there's a part of the vagus nerve that when it's stimulated, you also get a dopamine release as well. So again, we have light and feeling generally okay and feeling good. Makes us feel less anxious. Again, B6, if you're stressed, you haven't got enough B6 to make dopamine, so you're going to be anxious, tightness. Fascial tone increases across the diaphragm. D-L-phenylalanine, or rather phenylalanine. In this particular case, it was if you were going to take it as a supplement. D-L-phenylalanine Inhibits, I've got two responsibles there for some reason. It's obviously very responsible. Inhibits the enzyme responsible for endorphin breakdown, which controls pain reception. Now, there is a funny little thing about phenlanine, is because phenlanine can play two roles again, is that it is about pain perception to a certain degree, is that you can get more pain by having phenlanine, or you can have less pain to do with phenlanine, and it depends on the interaction it has with other things. But again, it appears to be involved as you're going to have issues with pain. This seems very vague when you're stressed. Even though when you're stressed you have less pain perception. But of course, once you've escaped, your body will then start to present its bills by going, I have pain here, 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 and I've been running for ages, so I'm actually aching everywhere. Okay, bit of a vague one, that, I think. However, light again, I find it interesting. Do we feel good when the sun comes out? Yes. Do our pains sort of go away when we have sunlight? Yeah. We tend to have far less pains when the sun's out, even if it's psychological. Oh, the sun's out, that's great, that's fantastic. Particularly in England, we haven't seen it before. What's that yellow ball in the sky? So, does mean traditionally is the supplementation of DLPA, 5-HTP, phenlanine, tryptophan and tyrosine, coupled with vitamin B6. Is this one of the reasons why it's been traditionally used for depression? Or maybe forget the supplements and just go out in the sunshine and stuff yourself with plenty of fat and cholesterol. Maybe. Don't know. Now, while we're there, where's the next slide? I'm just trying to think where we are with that. Ah, yes, healthy and miserable. So, yes, I rather like this cartoon. All organic, no fat, no cholesterol, no sodium, no chemical additives, and we all spice it up a bit so you would never know it was sawdust. Are you going to be happy with that kind of meal? The answer is no. And yet, supposedly, it's completely healthy for you. And how long do you think you'd last on it? Not very long at all, because your body's going to be stressed out of its mind. And if we believed everything we were told by the medical establishment, that all these things are supposedly healthy, they'd probably be proved wrong really quickly. So, if I go back to here, I'm walking across the... So we have a variety of number of stressors. We already know that light is, or rather lack of light or darkness is a stressor. And this is sort of fairly obvious as well, isn't it? Is that in the dark we tend to feel a little more uncomfortable. We tend to be a little bit more spiky or alert when it's dark. And when it's sunshine, we tend to feel safe. Pretty much every movie you'll ever watch, you know. Nobody ever gets well, apart from Spider-Man and Four Weddings and a Funeral, most people, if they're going to kiss and the folk get together, it's going to be lovely sunshine when the sun's up, you know, Sense and Sensibility, all that, very lovely indeed. If something's going to go wrong or something's going to get it in the neck, the chances are it's dark in a dark cellar somewhere, yeah? It's not often you get someone knocked off in the middle of the day on a nice shiny summer's day. Yeah, true, yeah. So there's various stresses. Environmental ones we've already talked about a little bit. Pollution of the five senses. When I say pollution in terms of what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're smelling, it will have an effect on us, what you taste, what you touch. Yeah? Now there's also something called social capital and social financial. Now this means that it's not simply a case of whether you have lots of money or not, because some people are actually more stressed when they have more money than not. I can speak from personal experience. I used to have an awful lot of money when I was on cruise ships, and I was possibly the most unhappy and the most rich I've ever been in my life. How does that work? It's because actually I had no self-worth and there was no real creative things, and I was being paid an awful lot of money for doing nothing. And there was a disparity of what seemed to be right. In the same way as a disparity of how we talk and how we think versus our physical posture, this can have ramifications in terms of our way of living. Is it right? And that doesn't necessarily mean to say that being poor is bad or being rich is bad. There's something called social capital, is your standing in the environment you're in. And this doesn't make any difference whether you're poor or rich. And in many cases, where there are environments where you have the rich who are not contributing to the welfare of the local community, their health goes downhill. Because the more selfish they become, quite often there is less worse, and it would appear that health-wise, and there's some interesting studies in that book, why zebras don't get ulcers. There's some very interesting observations in research about different areas, whether they're rich or poor, or if there is a financial discrepancy in terms of inequality between the areas. It doesn't necessarily equate to that the rich people are actually healthier at all. Is that, normally speaking, when there is not a sense of community or rightness, whatever that may mean, is that actually health goes down. Whereas if people have a sense of community and contribution, whatever that may be, whether you're rich or poor, then actually health gets better.
It throws an interesting light on Steve Jobs, doesn't it?
Mm.
That's Bill Gates as opposed to Bill Gates.
Yeah, maybe.
Now, Bill Gates, for many, many years, has been actively involved massively in charity.
Yes, absolutely. He gave £250 million to Rotary to get rid of polio. And he's given another, and he made it as a match fund. He says, if you raise another 250 million, I'll give you another 250 million.
He's put out billions that way. Well,
Yeah.
whether one likes him or not is interesting.
No.
He's obviously finding some degree of fulfillment. He's social capital.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, whereas Steve Jobs, from what I understand, was not the most popular man in the world.
Not necessarily. Again, who knows about, good people can get disease as much as a bad person can. It's more to do, I would say, that there is standing, and this applies to many species, is that depending on how you value yourself as well, self-worth also has a direct correlation between how healthy you are and how you deal.
Is that the barometer of social capital, self-worth?
Yes, to a certain degree, it would appear so. Self-worth and how you're viewed or how you think you're viewed. So there is a psychological thing going on here, but there has to, again, if there's a disparity, you can actually think yourself really great, but everybody else disagrees, then you're still probably going to get ill as well. So it's not quite, it's all to do with how you think of yourself. There has to be a correlation between, again, we can go down that, everything's working together, is that one reflects the other. If there's coherence between what you think and feel and structurally and also what you do in life, then actually chances are you're probably okay. Whether you get diseases or not is sort of irrelevant because there are other factors involved as well. Who's to say whether you should get a disease or not? What is disease? There's also a level of perceived control, and this I find is really fascinating. If I can remember it. I've got my little note here because I made a note because I thought, isn't that fun? Isn't that fun? That's strange.